Hi there, I'm Jason Whiteley. I'd like to introduce you to a friend of mine. His name's Walter Levy. He's 104 and he has a heck of a story to tell. Walter survived the Holocaust. His family fled Europe just as tensions boiled over there in the late 1930s. Today, as you know, there are very few of his generation left, but he's willing to share his story even at 104, regularly giving presentations and answering questions everywhere from schools to senior centers. He calls it Walter Comes to America, and we went to see it for ourselves recently at Presbyterian Village North.
No, tell us when you're ready to start.
I'm ready.
Well, yeah, but Lisa's not. Lisa, are you ready?
If Walter's ready, I'm ready, Tim. Yep.
Well, thank you all for coming out in this terrible weather today. Very, very excited for you to meet and hear. I see a friend out there. I see lots of friendly faces. Walter Levy. I'll give you a little bit of history about how Walter and I know each other. I met Walter about a decade ago when we were working on a documentary called Let Us Die. And Walter was one of the key translators of the letters for that documentary. And through that process, we became, I think, pretty good friends. And what was interesting, and there's always a backstory to a story, Walter has a story. So about a decade ago, when I met Walter, this is how I met Walter. I was invited to the forum where Walter is a resident, and I heard Walter Comes to America. And Walter was going over his background, and we met afterwards, and again we met and translated letters. Walter will soon tell you he's about to have a very significant birthday, and that's in June, and he'll tell you the date that he was born and when the birthday is. He's joined today by his daughter, Julie Rabinowitz, who will be sharing some things that Walter has. But Walter's story begins in Germany post-World War II. So Walter was born in the 1920s. He'll tell you the rest. He grew up in Germany through the Kristallnacht. So he's a direct witness to a time of history where there are so few witnesses remaining. What's really cool, and I'll tell you, I guess it was last week, wasn't it? Walter went to the Ursuline Academy, where my daughter is a student. They teach a class on Nazi Germany, the rise of Nazi Germany. And Walter was a guest speaker, Walter conducted 2 classes. And what he talked about is incredible. We do have another guest who's coming that wanted to say something. Walter will probably stop at some point. He doesn't talk a lot about his career, but I want you to think about, especially for our group, a gentleman who lived in a country where he wasn't wanted, wasn't even wanted to be alive. He came to this country and he pioneered geriatric social work, and it's a very big deal in that community, a very big deal in the Jewish community, in our community, and he's my very good friend, and he's probably going to tell me to shut up now. So I will say welcome, Walter, and welcome to Walter Comes to America.
Thank you, everybody. I'm glad that so many of you are here. And I want to thank Lisa Englander and the staff for making these arrangements. I'm very glad to be with you. I've been at Presbyterian Village North a number of times, and to be with my friends, Jason Whiteley and Tim Mallett, is a special pleasure. And you know I have to say that. But this is only the 3rd time today that I am with Tim, and twice it'll be next month, so it's always good to be together. So let's start from the beginning. I was born on June 9th, Friday, 1922. And I came at 11:30 in the morning, just in time for lunch. and for a weekend celebration. And to show you what a cute little boy I was, at 15 months, I'm going to pass this around. Please return it to Julie or someone on the staff when you've seen it. That's my mother and I at age 15 months for me. I was born in a small city of about 12,000 people, Ortelsburg, in southern East Prussia, not far from the Polish border. I will show you in this picture. You will see on top here 3 windows. These are black spots. This was our apartment. The city of Ortelsburg had 2 lakes. One was called the Little Lake, and the other one was called? Right, you were there, huh? The Big Lake. We were near the Little Lake. And right here, the bottom floor was a tavern, and there were apartments on the 2nd and 3rd floor. We were on the 3rd floor. On the 2nd floor lived 2 teachers in the elementary school. With one of the couples, we were friendly. His name was Willie Kuschel, with his wife and 2 children. He was a 5th grade teacher, and he painted these watercolor pictures. This is the Catholic church, near which was a barber shop where my mother took me for a haircut. And you see the lake, and a brewery across, and I'll pass this around. And when you looked out of our apartment, you saw this, some more of the Little Lake and the Protestant church over here. The little buildings here were residential and business, including a grocery store in which we did some shopping. My mother was a homemaker, took care of the family. I told you when I was born, and 4 years later, the same team, Dr. Tresp and the nurse Hedwig, delivered my sister Eva. My father was a traveling salesman of textiles, you know, stockings and socks and blouses, underwear, sweaters, and he did well. He was found tapped by a uniform manufacturing company, you know, like for doctors and nurses and chefs and so forth, and he became associated with them. He did so well that this company suggested that we should move to the capital of East Prussia, where my father was promoted to regional sales manager. The capital of East Prussia was Königsberg, a city of about 350,000 at the time, but it is now called Kaliningrad and is part of Russia. It is close to the Lithuanian border. And when we moved there, we had a very nice, large apartment in a very desirable neighborhood. I was in the 1st grade of high school. Now, in order to get more of an understanding of what happened with the Holocaust in the later years, it is good to backtrack a bit and talk about World War I, which was 1914 to 1918. And my father and three of his brothers, and two of his brothers, were also in the army, German army, 1914 to 1918. Germany lost that war and caused terrific damage in personal lives and in property. So in 1919, in the city of Versailles in France, the Allied powers met and discussed what should be made with Germany and how should Germany be punished. The Allies were the British, the French, the United States, the Russians, Hungarians, Italians, and others. And they came up with four major, you might call them, punishments. Number one, Germany's borders would be withdrawn. In Western Germany, Germany bordered France. Part of Germany was taken away and given to France. In the east, Germany bordered Poland, and part of Germany in the east was also taken away and given to Poland. That's number one. Germany had to pay very heavy reparation to the victors. That was number two. Germany managed and owned colonies in Africa. They were taken away from Germany and given to the victors. And the fourth one, Germany could not rearm itself with the exception of its statewide defense. So Germans really felt very, very humiliated and depressed. There was very large unemployment, terrific inflation. Things were very bad. It was time for an election. So in 1932, an election was held, and there were many parties. In Germany at that time, you don't vote for the person, you vote for the party. There were many parties. I will just give you the five most popular ones. One was the monarchists. They wanted the Emperor, Wilhelm, to come back to power. That's one. Another one was the communists. Another one was the Social Democrats. Fourth one was the Christian Democrats. And the fifth one was the National Socialist German Workers' Party. In short, the Nazis, of which Adolf Hitler was the leader. In this election, that party won. So in 1932, Hitler came to power. In 1933, became the leader, and in 1934, the chancellor. This Nazi party had an agenda. They had a platform. Number one was that Germany would be rearmed, that all the lost land that I told you about would be recouped and become part of Germany again. Germany would no longer make any reparation payments. All labor unions were outlawed. Free press was outlawed. All political parties, with the exception of the Nazi Party, were outlawed. and to perfect the Aryan race and German people. There was to be elimination of all Jewish people and all those who are from foreign lands and who are considered defective, like the gypsies, like the physically and mentally impaired, and certain religious groups such as the Jehovah's Witnesses. And this also included many pastors from Catholic and Protestant denominations. The primary target for destruction was the Jewish people, who were blamed for all of Germany's problems. All opposition was ruthlessly put down. Arrests, imprisonments were rampant in concentration camps, in prisons, forced labor, and so forth. An atmosphere of fear prevailed all over Germany. We had a first example of what this would mean in the family. One day my sister, 4 years younger than I, came home from school with a torn dress and a bloody nose. I was in high school at the time, the 8th grade, let's say, equivalent to the 8th grade here, and had a miserable time. My fellow students hurt me. I was spit at, I was called dirty names, I was tripped, I was hit, and what was the most serious one, you can well imagine, when you're a young kid in the 8th grade, I was completely discarded in certain days. No student would talk to me. The teachers, some discriminated against me, some did not. Those who did would not call on me when I raised my hand and had an answer to a question, because they did not want a Jew to be known to answer the question. Under those circumstances, Dr. Mentz, the principal of the high school, of the gymnasium, contacted my parents and recommended that I be removed from school because he could no longer guarantee my safety. So now we come to the Holocaust period. Often stated 12 years from 1933 to 1945. It was a genocide, a mass and systematic destruction of racial, religious, and national groups. The primary focus was on the Jewish people. The Nazis killed 11 people. 6 million Jews and 5 million non-Jews. Who were these non-Jews? They were Germans, they were Russians, Hungarians, Austrians, Poles, the French, you name them. What happened to them? They were killed in concentration camps, firing squads, gas chambers, disease, starvation, neglect, everything you can think of. Hitler measured his success by the number who perished each day, in the thousands. If you have not been to the Holocaust Museum here, I encourage you to visit because it is a very excellent resource for finding out more about the Holocaust period. Any questions? Under these conditions, my father found it very difficult to make a living. Jewish merchants were going out of business voluntarily or were forced to do so. Non-Jewish merchants either didn't want to buy from a Jew or were afraid to do so because what the government would do to them, they know that they bought merchandise from a Jew. So the company for which my father worked, the uniform manufacturer, sent my father on an orientation trip to 7 countries in Eastern Europe, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and Scandinavian, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Finland, to find out if they would buy what this uniform company was selling, because if they could buy that merchandise, the company would resettle us to one of these companies, and my father could sell and travel for him. Well, they didn't. What they bought from Germany was photographic merchandise, military goods, technical things. They did not buy much textile from Germany, so there was no hope for our resettlement over there. So we had to downsize. We moved from this large apartment to a much smaller one in a less desirable neighborhood, and it had 2 bedrooms. One we rented out to a tenant so that we could have a little more income to what small income my father was able to earn in his travels. Obviously, a 2-bedroom apartment, 1 bedroom was for my parents, and 1 was rented. So where did my sister and I sleep? My dad built a wooden frame of 4 rollers on which he put a mattress. And that is where Eva, my sister, and I would take turns sleeping. One week, she would sleep on the couch, and I would sleep on this contraption. Next week, we changed, and during daytime, this frame with the mattress was put under the couch. I will pass this picture around. It shows my parents, my sister, and I in our living room. My dad was 43 at this time, mother 34, I was 13, and Eva was 9. You see a coffee table. If you come to visit me at the forum where I live, you can see the table. My computer stands on this table. So we determined that we had to do everything we could to leave Germany. It was a very, very difficult and dangerous situation. Losing friends, family, knowing about arrests, everything I told you. Where would we go? Well, we determined we had 2 possibilities. One was Palestine, which is now Israel. And it is so good that we're meeting today because tomorrow Israel will celebrate its 78th birthday. At the time, Palestine was a protectorate, a mandate of Great Britain. And many immigrants from Germany, Jews, were able to go to Palestine, but there were limitations. And our chances were not good, even though my father had already 2 brothers who had immigrated to Israel. One was a farmer, and the other one was an electrical engineer. They immigrated to Palestine, tried to help us, and we knew that our chances were yes, but not good. The second possibility was my mother had cousins in Fort Smith, Arkansas, 275 miles northeast of Dallas. We did not know these people. We had never met them. They were born in Fort Smith. My mother wrote them a letter and asked if they would help us to get out. One of them took a major lead in helping us, Jennings Stein. His reply was very heartwarming. Not only would they help us to come to the United States, but they want to help us to move to Fort Smith and live with family. So now we had 2 possibilities. Palestine, yes, possible, but not very good, and United States. And the reason we can meet here together today, that the United States came first, and we came to this country. Now, immigration is not a very pleasant activity, and the United States doesn't make it too easy to come in, and Germany, of course, didn't make it easy to get out. Now, I must tell you that the earlier years you could leave Germany, the easier it got, but it became more restrictive. I'll give you 2 examples. My father filled out some immigration papers and took them to that office. And the official looked them over, and he said, "A comma is missing here. Go home, put the comma on, and come back." When we were packing, packers were in our apartment for our move to the United States. A Nazi official sat in our living room and watched everything that was being packed. We were permitted still to take all our belongings with us, but we were not permitted to buy anything new for the immigration. And my parents were each permitted to take with them $10, and my sister and I $5 each. So when he saw the packing, he noticed that there was a stamp album. I was a stamp collector, and I had this album of stamps. He said, "Let me look at it. I have to take it with me and show it to my supervisor whether you can take it. I will be back in the morning." So he came back. He says, "Yes, you may take it." Why? It wasn't worth very much. Eventually, we had covered all the problems with Germany and immigration requirements in the United States, and we were asked to come to the consulate of the United States in Berlin, where we were examined by a public health physician of the United States. The papers were all right. Our health examinations were good, and we were ready to go. We made farewell visits to relatives in 2 German cities, not knowing whether we would ever see them again. Now, I told you that my parents were permitted $20 and my sister and I 10. So at the port near Hamburg, where our ship, the American ship, passenger ship, the Manhattan, was waiting for us, my father had too much money in his pocket. He gave some of it to his brother, who came to the dock to bid us farewell. And the rest of it, we went to a music store to buy Walter an accordion. Now, I had a somewhat similar instrument that I could play a little bit, a button harmonica, but I had never played an accordion. So on the ship, I met a boy a little older than I from Vienna who was immigrating to relatives in Indiana. He had an accordion, and he could play, and he taught me a couple of songs. So when we arrived at the harbor in New York, you can imagine we were 4 people. We had a lot of luggage. The custom official pointed out he didn't want to open everyone, but he wanted some of the luggage to be opened, including that case where the accordion was. He said, "Open that." He said, "That's brand new." My father said, "No." Well, you could see beautiful black and white colors. "Whose is it?" My dad says, "My son's." "Oh, let him play it." "Does he know how to play?" "He's been playing for years." Not true. I took it out. I played a German waltz, and when I got half through, he said, "Okay, that's enough." So I made my debut before thousands of people at the harbor in New York, and we did not have to pay any customs. We stayed in New York overnight. Oh, I must tell you that on the ship, we observed July 4th, which was a terrific education and celebration for us. We arrived in New York on a Thursday morning. Our cousin from Fort Smith came to welcome us. He was at the dock. We spent a night in New York, took the train overnight to St. Louis, where we spent half a day. In St. Louis, Jennings Stein, the benefactor, lived his mother-in-law, who had a department store. And she took my sister and me to a drugstore in St. Louis for an ice cream soda. How wonderful. We had never seen it. We had never tasted it. Yes, mine was chocolate. Eva was strawberry. We took the afternoon train overnight to Fort Smith, where we arrived on a Sunday morning in July. Now, you know, air conditioning was known but not that popular. And Sunday morning in July in Fort Smith, it was hot as hell. Mary Kay had not yet been invented, I mean. One of the ladies who came to the railroad station to welcome us, it was so hot, her lipstick was floating down. Now I want to tell you what happened to my father's and my mother's family whom he left behind. My father was one of 4 sons. 3 of them served in the German army in World War I. One was too young. The oldest one was married to a Christian woman. For this, the Nazis punished him. He was punished for marrying a Christian, and she was punished for being a Jew. They were incarcerated, they were freed, they were in forced labor, they were together, they are separate. They had a terrible time during the war years. However, they survived. He had operated a factory in the city of Goslar that manufactured belts, suspenders, and garters. The Nazis confiscated it, destroyed it, and all their personal belongings in the apartment near the factory were thrown out of the windows. They, with all these difficulties, did survive the Second World War, eventually came to the United States and to Des Moines, Iowa, where they stayed a couple of years, but because of illnesses, their age, language difficulties, found it just very difficult to remain and adjust in the United States. So after a few years here, they moved back to Germany. No, not to the city from which they had those terrible experiences where they had lived, but they moved to a larger city, the city of Munich, well known for good beer. That's where they lived out their years, eventually passed away. My father was the second son. The third one became a farmer, had moved early to Israel, then first Palestine, came back to Germany to pick up his bride, and they had 2 children, my cousins, whom I visited every time that I visited Israel. Their name was Mira and Amram. All gone now. And the fourth one was the youngest. He was an electrical engineer. I knew him. I knew his fiancée. I knew when they were married. They moved to Israel and had a son named Abi, with whom I was in contact and visited here and in Israel, who passed away 3 months ago. So all my Israel close relatives are now gone. That is the story of what happened to my father's family. On my mother's side, we have a completely different picture. She lost all of her family. There was a sister named Paula with a husband and a daughter, Ruth. Ruth was my cousin. They had a grocery store. And in 1943, at an assembly of the marketplace where Jews were told to assemble. They were part of it, and they were taken with a whole group to the concentration camp Auschwitz, where they were murdered. It was Paula and her husband Julius and their daughter, my cousin Ruth. And in her memory, Julie's middle name is Ruth. There was a brother whose name was Walter, and he was a grain dealer. When I came to Fort Smith, my name was not Walter, my name was Wolfgang, and I changed it quickly to Walter after my favorite uncle. Uncle Walter was single and in his early 40s, but after we left, he married a woman who we knew, friends of ours. They also were in this group of Jewish people at the marketplace and shipped to Auschwitz and was murdered there. No children. The third one was a sister named Betty, also single at the time we left, but it was quite common during this terrible Hitler period for single people to get married. So it was easier to live through these terrible times in company with a loved one. She too got married, someone we did not know, and she was shipped to a concentration camp in Czechoslovakia, Theresienstadt. Theresienstadt was known for unhygienic conditions causing typhus. The International Red Cross informed my mother that her sister was murdered by typhus disease in Theresienstadt. So that completed my mother's family with one exception. There was an older couple, no children. He was in his early 60s and his wife a bit younger. They were well-to-do, and that was their problem, which they had with the Nazis, terrible. He was a retired owner of a hardware store. Gunda, his wife, was the sister of my maternal grandmother. We do not know what happened to her. She may have died of an illness, or murdered by the Nazis, or commit suicide. We have no record of her. He was shipped to a concentration camp in Poland, known for overworking the inmates, and that is where he was killed. Now I want to tell you something else about this. At the time, the Dominican Republic in Latin America started a program where it would permit German Jewish people to come to Dominican Republic for a temporary period of time. They could rent a house or an apartment and stay there, but only until they were ready to go to the United States. So they had a temporary place to go. Jennings Stein from Fort Smith had made arrangements to get a house for all these relatives of my mother, and he paid rent for them in the Dominican Republic in the hope they could come there and eventually get to the United States. It was too late. The Nazis did not let my mother's relatives leave in time to take advantage of this program. Now, what are we going to do with Walter? I come to Fort Smith. I was 16 years old. I had a miserable time in school in Germany. I was not interested in going back to school, but I couldn't fight all the relatives in Fort Smith who said I should go back to school. Now, at that time, the program of English as a second language did not exist yet. So the counselors in Fort Smith decided the most important thing for me was to learn English. All four of us in the family knew a little bit of English, but not too much. So they decided that in the morning I should go to Mrs. Rogers' third grade class to learn English. So I was with pupils half my age. They had a wonderful time with me, and I had a wonderful time with them. And whenever Mrs. Rogers had me be in front of the class and read their booklets, they would correct me if I made a mistake. Like I would read cannery. Say, Walter, it's canary. And I'd say, pea. He says, Walter, don't pee, it's pie. I played the accordion for him. We had a great time. So in the morning, every morning, I was in that class. In the afternoon, the counselors recommended that I go to the senior high school, but also to take sub-courses, to learn the language. You learn the language better by talking than by listening. So I had to take woodworking. And one of my daughters has a shelving chair that I made in the woodworking class. It's in her dining room. And industrial arts, which was linoleum block cutting and printing and bookbinding. And the third one was auto mechanic. Auto mechanic, I had to quit after 1 week because the teacher taught by the textbook. I couldn't read the textbook. So instead I requested to take American history, might as well learn something about my new country, and that was approved. So that was the first semester. The second semester, I had learned enough with my fellow third graders that I could take all my courses in the high school. I was able to discontinue the elementary school, went only to high school, continued the courses there that I told you about, and added speech and government. And I graduated that May, and I'm the only person you know who went from the third grade to the 12th grade in 9 months and graduated. Time, okay. Fort Smith had a junior college, which I attended for 2 years after I graduated from high school. It no longer exists. It's now the University of Arkansas, Fort Smith, a four-year university. And had some part-time jobs, you know, flipping hamburgers in a diner and stock clerk. When a recruiter came from Hendrix College. Now, Hendrix College is a Methodist Church-affiliated liberal arts college in Conway, Arkansas. The college had brought a refugee from New York State to the college, and that was a good experience. And because of that, they wanted to recruit another one. And they heard about this refugee in Fort Smith, so the faculty member was also a recruiter, came to Fort Smith and talked to my parents and to me in the request that after junior college, 2 years, I would come for the final 2 years to Hendrix. The college had already contacted the Arkansas Jewish Assembly, which had agreed to give me a loan. The college would give me, he said, a partial scholarship, and probably I would find a part-time job on the campus and have a summer job somewhere, so maybe I could make it. So we agreed I would go to Hendrix for the junior and senior year. It was a very good experience for me. I majored in a program they had called Philosophic Studies. It was education, psychology, philosophy, and religion, which means they didn't have a major in any of these. I was interested only in education and psychology, but had to take courses in all four. So that's what I majored in, and it had I also had enough credits to be certified for Spanish and English so that I could have a teacher's license in Arkansas. Now, in my junior year, anybody here active with the Highland Park United Methodist Church? Do you know a man by the name of Percy Goyne? Percy Goyne was assistant to the president at Hendrix College when I was there, and later moved to Dallas, became a very successful insurance agent and leader in the Methodist Church here. And we had contact together and still compared Hendrix notes. He called me to his office in my junior year at Hendrix, and he said, "Walter, we have a request from the Methodist Church in Dumas, Arkansas. They would like for you to come to speak to their evening dinner club. Would you go? They would pay your expenses and an honorarium. They would like for you to tell them about your experience in Germany. You would have to stay overnight, and we have already made arrangements with a Jewish family by the name of Tenenbaum where you can spend the night." Of course, I go. So I went, and I met with the couples club at the church, gave my talk, and I noticed that afterwards the pastor had a plate, and he passed us around. and people put money in this place. And when it came to me, the pastor said, "Here, Walter, put it in your pocket. It's all for you." So that was my honorarium and my expenses. In my senior year, shortly before I graduated and before Percy Goin left the college, he called me to his office again. He said, "Walter, you know that you received a little scholarship when you came to Henley." He says, "Yeah. We don't have money for scholarships. We have to raise money for scholarships. The scholarship that you received came from the Tenenbaum family in Dumas, Arkansas. I thought you would like to know that so you can thank him," which of course I did. So that was another good thing that happened to me. After graduation from Hendrix, I got a teaching job in Forest City, Arkansas. Forest City is near Memphis. Teaching English, Spanish, speech, and dramatics. The refugee from Germany teaching English, Spanish, speech, and dramatics, only in America. I went for a couple of semesters, University of Chicago in the summer, to get a master's degree in education, and I became more and more interested in counseling and guidance, and did that for several years. My clients were primarily American veterans coming home from the war who needed help finding jobs and educational planning. I did that for several years. Also, the physically and mentally, emotionally impaired people and refugees from Germany who were freed from displacement camps and had immigrated to the United States. That was most of my clientele. Through this, I had more and more contacts with social workers, and married one, became interested in this field, and got a master's degree in social work from University in St. Louis, Washington University, and I did that for many years. Eventually, I changed my focus in social work and opened a private practice of social work with the elderly and their families, from which I retired in 2000, then moved to the Forum, where I've now lived 22 years. I want to especially thank you for listening to me and for inviting Julie and me to have lunch with you. We have not been able to accept that, and I tell you why. The Forum today has a special luncheon for the 5 of us who are centenarians. There are 4 women and I. I'm the second oldest resident at the Forum and the only male. So after you've had a chance to ask me some questions, if you wish, we will have to leave. And if Lisa wants to invite us again, we'll come back. Thank you. Don't ask me the questions. I am not hard of hearing. I'm deaf.
Yes. Many of the Holocaust survivors that I know never really spoke about that at home. Did your dad talk about that when you were growing up?
No, he did not talk about it at home. I'll ask him the question. Dad, when we were growing up, you did not talk about your experience during the Holocaust in Germany, and many Holocaust survivors did not talk about it. Do you have a feeling as to why you didn't freely talk about
Okay.
it?
Yeah. You know, I had become Americanized. I talked to my wife about some of their experiences, but my children were young, and we had made a good adjustment in the United States. When they got older, I did talk about them. So, for example, a question I'm frequently asked, did I ever go back to Germany? The answer is no. I was not interested in doing so early on. But later on, when I wanted to show my wife what I'd been talking about, I wanted to go back. But we had other travel priorities. So I never did go back. But Julie and her husband have been to Germany just recently. So I have had some contact. But well, let me tell you, I had a teacher here in Fort Smith. He said, now, Walter, when it's time for you to get married, pick a Southern girl. They make the best wives. Well, I couldn't do much better, and I couldn't go further south than Mississippi. My wife, Helma, was born in Indianola, Mississippi. So, yes, I talked to her. She was made familiar by my parents, by me, about our side of the family, what they went through. But basically, with the children really not old enough yet until they became older and more mature.
Did you know that the Philippines were welcoming Jewish immigrants?
Who?
The Philippines.
The Philippines? No, I did not know.
Why are you still sharing your story today after all these years and at your age?
Because your president and CEO forces me to do this. No, yeah, let me tell you. About 2 years ago, I decided it was time for me to quit. You know, you're old enough to stop. It's enough already. And I told our activities director at the forum, no more. After that talk that she had asked me to do, the topic was aging with humor. That's where I tell clean jokes, shady jokes, and dirty jokes. The next day she comes back, she says, Walter, would you do one more? The residents in our assisted living have heard that you've been telling dirty jokes and they want to hear them. So, okay. And that was it. Until Tim Mallett to whom I'm very much indebted, and Jason Whiteley, and the three of us are like three stooges, you know. When he asks, I cannot turn him down. And this is the third one this month, and we will meet twice next month.
I would love to have you come back and tell some dirty jokes. We don't have So I will have Tim and Jason invite you back, but we want to thank you. PVN is very blessed and honored that you came today in this lovely weather. And Julie, thank you for bringing your dad. We really appreciate it. Thank you so very much, Walter.